My name is Grace Baynes. For those of you who don't know me, or I don't know you, I look after corporate communications for Nature Publishing Group. And welcome to this session about communications. As an industry, I hope that we are all in agreement that the need to communicate constructively with the communities we serve has never been greater. There's a sense that there's increasing negative sentiment about publishers. And I think I would question whether there is actually any more negative sentiment or whether we just hear a lot more of it because of the changing media landscape we live in. There's no doubt that that is a much more complicated media landscape than perhaps some of us grew up in. Jim talked earlier about a move from the channel of we to the channel of me. And with the advent of social media, everybody has their own broadcast channels. And everybody also has their own input channels, and they can choose what they read, listen to, what they believe. We have another challenge as publishers, in that what we do, we often see as being very complex and very hard to explain. Actually, I think it's very simple. We help authors communicate more clearly and more widely than they could do on their own, and we help readers filter and discover in a way that they couldn't do on their own. But actually today we're not here to talk about what we should say about ourselves, but to talk about why we should do that, why we should be communicating more, and to talk about how we might go about that. And we hope to inspire you all to communicate more and to provide some concrete suggestions about how you might go about doing that. We've entitled this session, Shifting the Conversation, and like all good communicators, we chose those words very carefully. We wanted to reflect the shift in our communications activity away from more traditional media relations to social media. And also, the word conversation is very important because we wanted to remind all of us that communication should always be a two-way process. So this morning we're going to focus on reputation management and corporate communication, and in particular the role that social media can play in that. And we're delighted to be joined by Alexandra Durnford of Register Larkin. Register Larkin specialise in reputation management, and they've worked with companies from the pharmaceutical industry to utilities organisations and many in between. And I personally think that there's much we can learn about what works and what doesn't from outside of publishing and scholarly research. I'm also really pleased to be able to offer case studies and insights from two of the most experienced communicators in our industry, Tom Ruller of Elsevier and Helen Bray from Wiley, and I think they're both going to be very generous in sharing of their experience and knowledge today. And then we'll round out this session with a panel discussion and an opportunity to have comments and questions from you. And that's going to be led by Matt Mackay of STM, who himself lectures on these topics regularly. And if the conversation is anything as lively as our communications committee meetings, then it should be fairly full and frank. So as I've said, our communities are talking about us increasingly on social media, and we ignore that conversation at our peril. So how do we shift the conversation? Well, my answer to that is simple. Be part of it. And yes, that means talking more, that awful business word, engage, but crucially, it also means doing a lot more listening. I was recently reading about a book about communicating, and it was a series of interviews with business leaders, and I came across a quote that was perfect for this session. If we were meant to talk more than listen, we would have 2 mouths and 1 ear. The person being interviewed attributed that quote to Mark Twain, as is often the case. And being a well-trained publishing person, I checked the citation before I used it myself, and I discovered it actually comes from a Greek philosopher. So our message to you is an ancient one, and is as old as civilization itself. We need to do a lot more listening and a lot less broadcasting. And only then will we understand the communities we serve, what's important to them, and we'll be able to start to have a real conversation with them.